Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the dunes, into a place where the sun hammers the earth so hard it's a wonder anything exists at all. But we're not here for the sun. No, tonight it's all about something far stranger. You're standing at the edge of the desert, your feet sinking into hot sand, and in the distance you'll see there's a faint shimmer. No, not a mirage. It's a camel caravan slowly winding its way across the horizon and balanced on the backs of those swaying ships of the desert. Is ice. Yes, actual, honest-to-goodness ice. Out here in the middle of nowhere. The kind you'd expect in a glass of lemonade, not baked in the sun like a forgotten popsicle. It's the 1800s, and you're about to witness a trade that feels like it belongs in a fever dream. And let's be honest, you wouldn't survive out here for 5 minutes. The heat is relentless. The sand gets into every crevice in your shoes, your teeth, your soul. Even your water bottle feels like a kettle left on the stove. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment. Where in the world are you watching from, and what time is it right now? Always curious to know. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pull your scarf tighter around your face, the fabric scratchy against your skin. The wind carries the faint smell of camel hair, kind of like old carpets that someone tried to freshen up with herbs but gave up halfway. The sand is warm under your feet, but as the sun dips lower, the air cools, and you can feel the heat radiating from the ground, like a giant oven door left cracked open. The caravan approaches slowly, the camels plodding along with that stubborn, unhurried gait, and the traders, Bedouins, wrapped in flowing robes, wave lazily at you. Their hands are calloused, their faces weathered, and their eyes squint against the sun like they've seen it all 1,000 times before. And maybe they have. Because here, in this ocean of dunes, they're not just moving spices or silks or the occasional bundle of dates. They're hauling blocks of ice. Big, heavy, melting blocks of ice, wrapped in layers of straw and camel wool, tucked deep into the backs of their beasts. It's absurd when you think about it. Ice. In the desert. It's like finding a snow cone stand at the top of Mount Everest. But there's a method to this madness. The Bedouins know that deep in the oases, tucked beneath the earth, are ancient ice pits. Some say they're as old as the stories themselves, lined with mud bricks, packed with sawdust or chaff, and sealed with woven mats that smell faintly of goat hair and thyme. That's where they stash the ice, hidden from the blazing sun. And yes, some historians still debate whether these ice pits were as widespread as the stories claim. There's always a debate, isn't there? But you can't argue with the feeling of standing here, watching the traders unload their cargo like they're unwrapping treasure. Each layer peeled back to reveal a glistening block, smooth as polished glass, cold mist curling off the edges like a dragon's breath in the desert twilight. The traders talk among themselves in low voices, their language a gentle hum that seems to blend with the wind. You catch a word here and there, barid, cold, and asrar, secrets, and you wonder what secrets are locked inside that ancient, improbable cargo. Maybe a block of ice isn't just a block of ice out here. Maybe it's a promise of a wedding feast, of a cool drink under the stars, of survival itself. You reach out and touch the ice, your fingers tingling with the shock of cold. It's the strangest feeling, like shaking hands with a ghost. The traders laugh, a soft, crackling sound like dry leaves rustling in the breeze, and one of them pats you on the shoulder, as if to say, yes, it's real. And then you see the trick they use. Camel hair, packed tight around the ice, like nature's own bubble wrap. It's not perfect. The ice still melts, of course, leaving behind damp patches in the sand. And you imagine some poor trader back in the day realizing his cargo was leaking and wondering if he should just drink it all to make up for the loss. But the Bedouins have their ways. They travel at night, when the desert breathes cool and the stars hang low, whispering secrets to the earth. As the caravan moves on, you feel the sand shifting beneath your feet, as if the ground itself is sighing under the weight of history. A few stray grains stick to your skin, clinging stubbornly, and you remember that even the smallest things out here have stories. Even the sand. The night deepens. The moon rises, pale and distant, casting long shadows across the dunes. Somewhere in the distance, a jackal howls, a thin, mournful sound that fades into the wind. And you stand there, ice at your fingertips, the desert sprawling out around you like a quiet, ancient canvas. And maybe, just maybe, you start to think about what you'd trade for a single cube of that ice if you were stuck out here for real. Your water bottle? Your shoes? Your phone even? The sand has a way of making you rethink your priorities. But don't worry, you're not really stuck here. Just listening, just drifting. We're only getting started. The caravan moves ahead, and you find yourself trailing behind, your steps crunching softly in the sand. The camels sway like ships on a slow tide, and their tails flick lazily at the occasional fly. Because yes, even out here, flies somehow find a way to exist. The air is drier now, cooler as night creeps across the dunes. The traders' voices have dropped to a murmur, blending with the sigh of the wind, and the only other sound is the faint clink of metal. Someone stirring a cup of tea over a small fire that smells like burnt wood and cardamom. You pause for a moment, glancing back at the horizon. The sun has long dipped below the dunes, leaving behind streaks of pink and gold that fade slowly into indigo. And as you turn back, something catches your eye, half buried in the sand, like a forgotten relic from another time. A patch of woven camel hair, sticking out of the earth. It looks almost like a collapsed tent at first, but no. This is something different. Curiosity gets the better of you. You brush away the sand, your fingers sifting through the warm grains until you feel it, a hard, cold surface beneath the fabric. Ice, again. And not just a block left out by accident, but an entire underground chamber, dug deep and carefully lined with straw, camel hair, and salt-crusted walls. It's like stumbling across a desert refrigerator. This is the secret, you realize, as you peer into the dim space. The Bedouins knew how to trap the cold. They built these pits with layers of insulation, sand on the outside, camel hair and straw inside, then ice blocks packed tight, like a treasure hoard hidden away from the merciless sun. It's a clever trick of thermodynamics, though they probably didn't call it that. They just knew it worked. And sure, historians still argue about how common these ice pits really were. Some claim they were rare luxuries, only for the wealthiest caravans. Others say they were more widespread, especially near certain oases. But standing here now, with your hands brushing the rough camel hair lining, you can't help but imagine a whole network of these secret cold chambers scattered across the desert like forgotten vaults of frost. The air down here smells different, damp, musty, with a faint hint of salt and old straw. It's a strange, earthy scent, like the inside of a barn after rain. You shiver a little, not from cold exactly, but from the oddness of it all. Ice, hidden in the heart of the desert, guarded by nothing but sin and silence. You imagine a trader, centuries ago, slipping into this pit in the dead of night, checking on his precious cargo. Maybe he lights a small oil lamp, the flame flickering against the walls, casting long shadows. He runs his hands over the blocks of ice, feels the chill seep into his bones, and lets out a breath of relief. Because out here, every block saved is a fortune. And just when you think the scene couldn't get any more surreal, you remember that some traders packed not just ice, but actual perishable goods, melons, dates, sometimes even the occasional fish shipped in from coastal towns like Jeddah. Imagine biting into a cool slice of watermelon while the desert blazes outside. It's the kind of luxury you'd trade a camel for. And yes, that actually happened, and some desert barters were made not with gold or silver, but with ice and the promise of fresh fruit. You run your fingers over the rough camel hair again, and a small thought creeps in. This natural insulation feels a bit like those fancy insulated tumblers everyone carries around nowadays. The irony isn't lost on you. 2 centuries ago, they had camel hair and sand. Now we have double-walled stainless steel with vacuum seals. Different materials, same human need to keep things cold. A soft sound distracts you. Someone outside the pit, singing under their breath. It's an old Bedouin melody, the notes lilting and low, like the hum of the desert itself. You can't quite make out the words, but they linger in the air, blending with the scent of cardamom tea and the rustle of straw. You close your eyes for a moment and just listen. The desert feels so alive in this quiet way, like it's breathing, whispering secrets through the dunes. And then you hear a story being told nearby, in that casual, half-laughing tone that travelers use when they're trying to pass the time. It's about a trader who once tried to bribe a rival caravan guard with a small block of ice. Just a handful, really. And the guard, a wiry man with a face like old leather, accepted the deal, but accidentally dropped the ice in the sand moments later. They say he tried to pick it up, but it melted too fast, leaving nothing but a damp patch and a very awkward silence. Some say that ice cost the trader his entire shipment. Others say it's just a story told to amuse bored travelers by the fire. You'll never know for sure. That's part of the charm, isn't it? The desert holds its stories close. A breeze picks up, swirling a few stray grains of sand across your toes. The fire crackles softly in the distance, and the camels grunt, shifting their weight. Someone pours a cup of tea, the liquid steaming in the night air, and you can almost taste it. Sweet, spiced, and a little smoky. You settle into the sand, the fabric of your scarf soft against your cheek, and let the sounds drift around you. The wind, the quiet laughter, the distant whisper of a song. You don't need to move. Just let the desert hold you for a while. There's plenty more to see. The night deepens, and the stars bloom brighter than you've ever seen, scattered like spilled sugar across a black velvet cloth. You lean back, letting the cool sand cradle you, and stare up at the sky as if you could count every pinprick of light. Somewhere, a camel snorts softly, its breath a warm puff in the cool air. A trader nearby hums under his breath, a lazy, tuneless murmur that blends with the crackle of the fire. The smell of roasting coffee beans drifts toward you, sharp, bitter, and somehow comforting, even though you know it won't keep the cold at bay for long. The wind shifts. You catch the faintest hint of salt in the air, mingled with dust. And that's when you remember. Not all caravans cross the desert for spices or silk. Some carry salt, heavy, coarse blocks of it, cut from ancient seabeds and traded like currency. The salt caravans stretch for miles, their camels groaning under the weight, their traders wrapped tight against the wind. And sometimes, this is the part that makes you raise an eyebrow. They carry ice too, packed together with the salt in a strange, fragile balance. Because salt slows the melting, they say. It's like a natural freezer pack, centuries before anyone invented styrofoam. The trick is old, but it works. You imagine the traders loading their cargo. A block of ice, a layer of straw, then a thick slab of salt, stacked like a strange desert sandwich. And yes, some historians argue about whether the salt made much of a difference, or if it was just a clever excuse to explain a lucky shipment that didn't melt as fast as expected. Either way, it's a neat little trick of survival. You smile, thinking about it. Like a desert version of those freezer gel packs you toss into your lunch bag. Except here, it's the sand and salt doing the work. Your fingers trail through the grains beside you, feeling the soft crunch of the sand mixed with tiny crystals. Sharper, colder, like crushed rock candy. It's funny how things blend out here. Salt in the sand, stories in the air, the past and the present swirling together in the wind. A trader sits cross-legged nearby, sipping tea from a battered tin cup. His voice drifts over to you, low and steady, as he recounts a story to no one in particular, maybe just to the stars. It's about a merchant who once tried to ship an entire shipment of fish across the desert, packed in salt and ice, hoping to sell it fresh at a coastal market. They say the caravan made it 3/4 of the way before a sandstorm hit, ripping apart the tents, scattering the camels, and turning the whole thing into a salty, stinking disaster. Imagine that. Fish in the desert, miles from the nearest sea, rotting under the sun. Some say the smell lingered for weeks. Others say it never really left, like a ghostly reminder of human ambition outpacing common sense. You can't help but grin at the absurdity of it. Fish in the desert. That's like bringing a snow globe to a bonfire. And yet, the traders kept trying, because out here, survival isn't just about food or water. It's about the idea that you can outwit the desert, even just for a moment. That maybe, with the right trick, the right timing, and a little luck, you can carry a block of ice or a basket of fish across an unforgiving sea of sand. A breeze tugs at the edge of your scarf, cool and dry against your cheek. The fire crackles again, a soft pop, and you catch a whiff of singed camel hair. Someone's cooking flatbread too close to the flames. It smells a bit like burnt toast mixed with the scent of old leather. Not exactly a 5-star meal, but it's enough to make your stomach grumble. One of the traders leans over and mutters something about an oasis up ahead. You can't quite catch the name, but the way he says it, soft, almost reverent, makes it sound like a promise. A place where the water is cool, the dates hang heavy on the palms, and if you're lucky, there's even a chance to refill the ice stores hidden deep underground. They say the best ice comes from those oases, where the water flows pure and slow, trickling through ancient stone channels carved long before your great-great-grandfather's time. And here's a strange fact. Some oases were known for their unique mineral content, like little pockets of the earth where the water tasted sweet or even fizzy, depending on the underground springs. Imagine sipping naturally sparkling water in the middle of the desert, like some sort of luxury spa moment. Except your spa is full of goats and date palms and a general sense of survival. You see, stretching out your legs, letting the sand shift beneath you. The fire's warmth is fading, and the night settles heavy on your shoulders like a soft, scratchy blanket. The traders are quiet now, their voices low and murmuring, as if the desert itself has wrapped them in silence. The camels snore. Yes, they actually snore. Little grumbling sounds like old men dozing by a fire. Your eyelids feel heavy, your thoughts drifting, and you wonder, what would you have done back in the day if someone offered you a small blocks of ice in the middle of the desert? Would you have traded a pouch of dates, a bolt of silk, maybe even a promise you weren't sure you could keep? But it doesn't matter now. You're just here, listening. The sand shifts, the fire crackles, and the desert hums its quiet, endless song. You wake to the soft creak of camel leather and the rhythmic shuffle of hooves in the sand. The sun is just starting to stretch its golden fingers across the dunes, casting long, sleepy shadows. The traders are already packing up, their hands moving methodically, tucking bundles of cloth, tying ropes tight, and checking the loads strapped to the camels' backs. The air still holds a trace of last night's chill, but you can already feel the promise of heat lurking in the rising light. A faint breeze stirs, carrying with it the scent of roasted coffee grounds and a hint of something sharper: camel sweat, old salt, and the ever-present dust. You shuffle to your feet, brushing sand from your clothes. The ground feels firm beneath your boots, and yet it shifts under your weight, as if the desert is gently reminding you who's in charge. The traders give you a nod, as if you've always been part of the caravan, and one of them, a man with a beard as wiry as the bristles of a brush, tosses you a piece of dried date. It's sweet, sticky, and tastes like sunshine trapped in a bite. You chew slowly, the flavor grounding you as the caravan moves on, a winding line of shadows against the glowing sand. Ahead, the dunes ripple in lazy curves, and you can't help but notice how they almost seem to breathe. Rising and falling, like the slow inhale and exhale of some ancient creature. And that's when the stories begin. The traders swap tales like coins, tossing them back and forth as they trudge along. And today's story, the Ice Wars. You blink. Ice Wars. In the desert? Yes. Apparently, there were times when rival clans clashed over ice. Actual fights with camels and blades and hot tempers, all for blocks of frozen water. Picture it. 2 caravans, their traders glaring across the sands, each convinced they have a rightful claim to a shipment of ice stored beneath the dunes. Some say the fight started when a sheikh's daughter wanted ice for her wedding feast, and a rival clan intercepted the caravan, thinking it would fetch a higher price elsewhere. Others claim it was more practical. Ice meant cool water, and cool water meant life. Either way, the desert saw its share of skirmishes, where the prize wasn't gold or jewels, but slippery, melting chunks of ice. You imagine the scene. Men shouting, camels braying, swords flashing under the sun, and all the while, the ice sweating quietly in the heat, as if it knew it was the cause of all the fuss. There's something absurd about it, isn't there? Risking your life for something that's going to vanish in a few hours anyway. And yet, that's the thing about the desert. It makes you value what's fleeting. Maybe that's why they fought so hard. The traders debate this too. One swears he's descended from a warrior who fought in the Ice Wars, though the others tease him mercilessly. If that's true, where's your ice now, huh? They laugh, a soft, dusty sound, and one of the older men leans in to whisper a half-truth. Some say there's still a hidden cache of ice buried deep in the dunes, untouched, waiting for the right hands to find it. His voice drops to a conspiratorial tone, the kind that makes you glance around, half expecting to see a glint of something frozen just beneath the sand. But of course, it's all just stories. Or is it? The sun climbs higher, the heat pressing down like a weight, and you find yourself pulling your scarf tighter, squinting against the glare. The camels plod on, their long necks swaying, and you catch a whiff of their breath. Warm, grassy, and a little sour, like old hay left in the sun. The sand sticks to your skin, clinging in stubborn patches, and you feel a bead of sweat trickle down your back, ticklish and slow. And then, just when you think the desert couldn't get any stranger, you see it. A faint shimmer on the horizon, like a ghost of water, a mirage. It ripples and dances in the heat, a perfect illusion of a sparkling lake, complete with palm trees swaying lazily at the edge. You know it's not real. Everyone knows. And yet, the traders pause, their eyes narrowing, as if for just a second, they dare to believe. You blink, and it's gone. Just heat, just air, just the desert playing its old tricks. The traders shake their heads and chuckle, muttering curses at the mirage. But you can tell, there's always that tiny part of them that wonders. What if? And you're standing here, sweating under the weight of a sun that feels like it's reaching down to slap you across the face. And you start to wonder too. What if there really was an oasis right over that ridge? What if you could stumble upon a hidden ice pit, cool and damp, and waiting just for you? What would you trade for it? Your boots, your water bottle, that last pouch of dates. Your stomach growls, and someone hands you a flatbread, still warm from the fire. You bite into it. It's chewy, a little smoky, with a faint tang of camel milk. And for a moment, the world feels simple again. Just you, the sand, the traders, and the endless, endless sky. And somewhere, in the back of your mind, the image lingers. Men fighting over ice, blades clashing. Sand kicking up in swirls, and the ice melting quietly in the middle of it all. You almost laugh. Almost. But the desert, as always, has more stories to tell. The sun climbs higher, and the desert shifts beneath your feet. Each grain of sand a tiny, glowing ember of heat. You wipe a sleeve across your brow, but it's no use. The sweat keeps coming, trickling down your neck in lazy rivulets, soaking into the collar of your shirt. The traders move slower now, their steps dragging, camels plodding forward with the patient stubbornness of creatures who know exactly how long this day will last. The air shimmers, a golden haze dancing across the dunes, and your skin feels dry, tight, as if the desert is slowly trying to turn you into one of its own. A sun-bleached fossil, tucked away beneath the sand. And then, as if on cue, the first grains of sand hit your face, sharp as tiny needles. A gust of wind whips past, tugging at your scarf, lifting the edges of the trader's robes, sending loose bits of straw and camel hair skittering across the ground. The traders glance at the sky, their faces tightening, and one of them mutters a quiet curse. You feel it too, something shifting in the air, an almost electric tension, like the desert holding its breath. A sandstorm. You've heard the stories, but now you're in it, and it's nothing like you imagined. The wind builds quickly, a low, rising howl that seems to echo inside your chest. The sand lifts in sheets, swirling and biting, filling your nose and mouth with grit. You pull your scarf tighter, your eyes watering, the taste of dust sharp and bitter on your tongue. The camels grunt and bellow, some turning in nervous circles, and the traders move fast, throwing blankets over the ice cargo, anchoring them with ropes, shouting instructions that vanish into the roar. The storm swallows you, wrapping the world in a swirling wall of gold and brown. The sun disappears, and for a moment, it's like the desert has swallowed the sky itself. You can't see more than a few feet in any direction. Just shapes moving through the haze, the dark bulk of a camel here, the flash of a trader's robe there. The sand gets into everything, your ears, your teeth, even the spaces between your toes, and the sound of it, the hiss and scrape, is everywhere, relentless. You stumble forward trying to keep up, but it's impossible. The sand is so thick you feel like you're wading through smoke. You crouch low, wrapping your arms around your head, and the grains pelt your back like 1,000 tiny stings. Somewhere nearby, a trader yells something about the ice pit. The ice pit. And you realize they're trying to protect the precious cargo from the storm's fury. And here's the thing. You'd think a sandstorm would melt the ice. But no, it's the opposite. The sand, as brutal as it is, actually acts as an insulator, trapping the cold inside. It's a bizarre, almost poetic irony. The very thing that scours your skin raw can also protect the ice, keeping it hidden, safe, and cool beneath the dunes. Of course, too much sand, too fast, and the pits collapse entirely. That's the real danger. Not the heat, but the weight of the desert itself pressing down, smothering the ice in its relentless, shifting embrace. Some historians argue about how effective this natural insulation really was, whether the Bedouins mastered the art of balancing the heat and the sand, or whether they were just playing a long, risky game against nature's whims. But standing here, tasting grit on your tongue, feeling the sting of sand in your eyes, you can't help but think there's a strange kind of genius in it. Nature giveth, nature taketh away. And sometimes, nature gives you a sandstorm to test your patience. The storm rages on and you lose track of time. Minutes stretch into hours, Or maybe it's only a heartbeat. You can't tell. The world has shrunk to the sound of the wind, the taste of dust, the feel of sand grinding against your skin like sandpaper. And then, just as suddenly, the storm starts to ease. The wind softens, the air clears, and the sun reappears. Distant, hazy, but warm. You blink against the brightness, rubbing your eyes, coughing the sand from your throat. The traders emerge too, shaking sand from their robes, brushing off their camels, their faces streaked with grit and sweat. One of them laughs, a low, wheezing sound, and slaps another on the back. You hear snippets of conversation, jokes about sand in places no sand should ever be, and how even the camels will need a bath now. Good luck with that. The tension breaks, the storm already becoming just another story to tell around the fire. You glance at the cargo. The blankets are dusty but intact, and when they peel them back, you see it. The ice, still there, glistening faintly beneath the sand. A few drops of meltwater bead on the surface, catching the light like tiny jewels. It's a small victory, but out here, every block of ice saved feels like a miracle. You reach down and touch the cold surface, the chill biting into your fingertips, and you can't help but grin. After all that, it's still here. The desert tried to take it, but the ice held on. For now. The traders start moving again, their steps lighter somehow, and the camels snort, shaking sand from their ears. You fall into step behind them, your feet crunching in the newly smoothed dunes, the sky wide and endless above you. And as you walk, you can't help but think, if a sandstorm can't stop a Bedouin from hauling ice across the desert, maybe nothing can. You keep walking, the sand crunching beneath your boots, the dunes rolling away in all directions like soft waves frozen in place. The air smells clean now, sharp, almost metallic after the storm, as if the sand itself has been scoured of its dust and secrets. The sun hangs high, warm, but not yet brutal, and you feel a strange sense of calm, like the world has paused for a breath after the chaos. The traders fall into a quiet rhythm again, their voices see, their steps measured. The camels grunt and sway, the occasional snort rising into the stillness, and you can hear the faint creak of leather and rope with every shift of their burdened backs. It's then that you notice the cargo isn't just ice. Tucked among the bundles of straw and cloth, you spot something unexpected. A watermelon. A perfect, round, green-striped watermelon, nestled like a treasure in a bed of straw. You blink, thinking your eyes are playing tricks on you. But no, it's real. A watermelon. In the middle of the desert. You stare at it, baffled, until a trader notices your expression and grins. His teeth flash white against his sun-darkened skin, and he nods toward the fruit. "For the Sheikh's feast," he says, as if that explains everything. And in a way it does. Because here's the thing, if you're going to carry ice across the desert, why not bring a watermelon too? If you've gone to all that trouble to keep something cold, you might as well make the most of it. The traders talk about this as they walk, how they sometimes pack watermelons, dates, even sweet drinks in clay jars, tucking them alongside the ice in the pits. It's not just practical, it's a luxury. A little slice of cool sweetness in a world of heat and dust. You imagine a desert wedding, the guests seated on woven mats, the air thick with the scent of roasting meat and cardamom, and someone slicing into a chilled watermelon. The juice running over their fingers, the sweetness a sharp contrast to the dry, endless sands. And of course, some historians argue whether these stories are just romantic exaggerations. Did they really transport fresh fruit across the desert? Or is it a case of traders embellishing the tale, making their cargo sound more exotic, more impressive than it really was? You'll never know for sure. But as you watch the traders now, carefully shifting the bundles to keep the watermelon safe, You can't help but believe it. Because who wouldn't want a cool slice of melon in the middle of nowhere? The sun beats down harder now, the light turning the sand into a shimmering mirror. You feel the heat radiating off the ground, soaking into your shoes, wrapping around your ankles like an invisible scarf. The camel's hooves kick up little puffs of dust with each step, and the breeze carries a faint, earthy scent. Camel sweat, warm straw, and the sharp tang of something metallic, like the faintest hint of iron in the air. The traders start to hum a song, soft and rhythmic, a tune that rises and falls with their footsteps. The words drift toward you, old and worn like the desert itself. It's a song about the road ahead, the promise of water, and a line that makes you grin. Even a watermelon dreams of the sea. You wonder who first sang that, and whether they ever got to taste the salt on the breeze, far from these endless dunes. A sudden gust of wind lifts the edge of a trader's robe, and you spot something glinting beneath it. A small metal flask. He notices you looking and offers it with a wink. You take it, unscrew the cap, and sniff. It smells like dates, strong and sweet. You take a sip, warm, syrupy, like liquid fruit, with a faint burn that surprises you. The trader laughs, his voice deep and scratchy, and says something about desert wine. You're not sure if it's fermented or just strong enough to fool you, but it warms your chest all the same. The sun starts to dip again, casting the dunes in long, soft shadows. The traders slow their pace, and one of them points to a patch of sand that looks, to your eyes, like every other patch of sand. But no, they know this is a good spot. They begin to unload, pulling back layers of straw and camel hair, revealing the ice beneath. You crouch down, running your fingers over the cool surface, marveling at how it's held up. It's not as solid as before. There's a fine sheen of meltwater glistening on the blocks, catching the fading light. But it's still ice, still precious, still there. One of the traders pulls out the watermelon, wipes it off with the edge of his robe, and slices into it with a curved dagger. The sound is soft, almost a sigh, and the fruit splits open to reveal its red, glistening flesh. They pass the slices around, and you take one, biting into it. The juice runs down your chin, cold and sweet, a burst of life in the middle of the desert. The traders laugh at your expression, and you can't help but grin too, because really, how often do you get to eat chilled watermelon in a place like this? You sit there, juice dripping onto the sand, the ice slowly melting beside you. The traders chatting softly in a language that flows like water over stones. The desert stretches out around you, endless and quiet, and you feel small, maybe, but also lucky to be here, to taste this moment, to hear these stories, to feel the cool sting of ice against your fingertips in a place where it should not exist. And as the last rays of sunlight fade, the traders cover the ice again, tucking it in like a sleeping child. And you wonder what other strange cargo waits beneath the dunes, hidden in the folds of history. The night settles in like a soft blanket, draping over the dunes, the stars winking into place one by one. The traders cluster around a small fire, their faces glowing amber in the flickering light, their shadows dancing long and thin across the sand. The flames crackle, sending little sparks drifting upward, and the scent of charred wood mingles with the faint sweetness of dates and the earthy aroma of camel hair blankets. You can feel the warmth radiating outward, but it doesn't quite reach the edges of the desert's chill, which seeps into your bones. Quiet and persistent. You pull your scarf tighter, feeling the rough fabric scrape gently against your skin, and listen to the traders swapping stories in low, murmuring voices. One of them, a wiry man with a voice like gravel and a grin that creases his whole face, leans in and tells you a story. A strange one. It's about a time when a sandstorm blew in unexpectedly, just like the one you faced earlier, but this time, it caught a caravan off guard. They'd stopped to rest, unloading their cargo of ice in a shallow pit they thought was safe. But the storm had other ideas. The winds came howling, wild and fast, and before anyone could react, it swept a whole load of ice away, just snatched it up like a thief in the night. They say the traders watched, half in shock, as the sand swallowed the ice, drifting over it until it was gone, hidden beneath the dunes. Some of them tried to dig it out, their hands raw and blistered from the effort, but it was no use. The desert had claimed it, and the ice melted quietly beneath the sand, vanishing like a secret no one was meant to find. And here's the twist. Months later, another caravan stumbled across that same patch of desert. The sand had shifted again, as it does, revealing the remnants of the buried ice. The traders who found it thought they'd stumbled on treasure, something left by an ancient people, a relic of a time when the desert had been green and cool. They packed it up carefully, thinking it was some kind of magical stone, and carried it to a distant town where it melted, right there in the market square, in front of a crowd of wide-eyed onlookers. The locals called it the disappearing stone, and some even believed it was a gift from the gods. Imagine that. Ice, mistaken for a divine relic. It's the kind of story you'd expect from a desert, where the line between survival and myth is as thin as a strand of camel hair. You can't help but laugh, a quiet huff that mixes with the crackle of the fire. The trader grins at you, his eyes twinkling, and shrugs as if to say, "That's the desert for you." The breeze stirs, cool and dry, carrying the faint scent of something herbal. Someone's brewing tea, the sharp tang of mint cutting through the night air. You hear the soft clink of cups, the gentle slosh of liquid being poured, and you find yourself handed a small tin cup, the sides warm against your fingers. You sip slowly, the tea sweet and spiced, with a faint smokiness that lingers on your tongue. It's the kind of taste that makes you close your eyes and sigh, even if it's a little gritty from the ever-present sand. A camel groans nearby, a deep, grumbling sound that rumbles through the quiet like a slow drumbeat. The traders chuckle, one of them patting the beast's flank affectionately, and someone mutters that camels never seem to appreciate ice. And it's true. Camels, for all their toughness, have their own opinions. Some flat out refuse to carry ice, as if offended by the very idea. Others accept it with the same bored indifference they seem to have for most things, their big, sleepy eyes half closed, their jaws working in slow, methodical chews that make them look perpetually unimpressed. It's easy to see why the Bedouins sometimes joke that a camel's best talent is its ability to hold a grudge. They say if you offend a camel, it might just wait 10 years before spitting in your face, though honestly, it's probably sooner. You settle into the sand, feeling the warmth of the tea in your belly, and let the stories wash over you. They talk of ice, of course, how it was sometimes used to cool water skins or tucked beneath baskets of fruit to keep them fresh. But they also talk about the wind, the desert breeze that can turn from a soft whisper to a roaring sand-laden force in a blink. Some traders believe the wind has a spirit, a will of its own, choosing who it favors and who it punishes. They say that if you listen closely, you can hear the wind's mood. A high, keening wail means trouble's coming, while a low, soft hum means the desert is at peace. Tonight, the wind hums quietly, weaving through the dunes like a lullaby, brushing your cheeks with the cool, dry kiss of ancient air. And as you drift, your eyes heavy, you wonder, if the wind really does have a voice, what secrets has it carried across the sands? Whispers of caravans lost to time, of ice melting quietly beneath the dunes, of traders laughing over cups of tea under a sky so wide it feels like it could swallow you whole. You take another sip, let the warmth linger, and feel the sand shift slightly beneath you, as the desert breathes its slow, steady rhythm. And you wonder, in that soft, hazy way that happens when you're almost asleep, how much of the world's treasure has been lost to time. Not gold or jewels, but simple, fleeting things. A block of ice, a slice of cool watermelon, the sound of a story told by firelight. And maybe, just maybe, those are the things that matter most. The fire burns lower now, just a soft glow in the sand, the embers pulsing gently like a sleepy heartbeat. The traders lie scattered around it, wrapped in their blankets, their breath slow and even. The camels have settled too, their long necks tucked awkwardly, their legs folded beneath them like giant, hairy origami sculptures. You lie back, the sand firm beneath your spine, and stare up at the sky. The stars shimmer cold and sharp, and the moon hangs low, a thin silver curve, like a fingernail left behind by the gods. The wind hums through the dunes, soft and constant, carrying the faintest scent of salt and dry grass. And as you listen to the desert's quiet music, your thoughts drift back to the ice, to the strange, quiet struggle it represents. It's not just about keeping things cold, you realize. It's about holding on to something that wasn't meant to last, about defying the desert's slow, patient hunger, about making a tiny, fleeting mark in a place where time stretches endlessly, erasing most things as if they never existed at all. One of the traders stirs, his voice low and scratchy, like an old record player humming to life. He tells a story you almost miss at first, the words blending with the wind, but you catch it. About a falcon. Not just any falcon, but one trained to guard the caravan. A bird of prey, its feathers sharp and sleek, its eyes dark and clever, its claws quick and silent. They called him Malik, which means king, and they say he could spot thieves from a mile away, diving from the sky with a shriek that sent even the boldest bandits scrambling for cover. There's a story, half true, half legend, as most desert stories are, about the time Malik saved an entire ice shipment. It was during a particularly brutal summer, the kind where the air feels like an oven and your sweat dries on your skin before you even realize you're hot. The traders had been making good time when they spotted trouble on the horizon. A band of thieves, lean and desperate, drawn by the scent of something precious. The traders panicked, of course. There wasn't much they could do. Camels aren't exactly known for their speed, and the ice, packed tight and heavy, wasn't going anywhere fast. So they huddled together, gripping their blades, waiting for the worst. But Malik had other plans. The falcon took off with a sharp cry, circling higher and higher, until he was a speck against the blinding sky. Then, in a flash, he dove, straight at the leader of the thieves, his wings tucked, claws outstretched. They say Malik struck the man square in the chest, tearing at his robes, and sent him tumbling backward into the sand. The other thieves scattered, spooked by the attack, and the traders were left clutching their precious cargo, hearts pounding, the ice sweating quietly in the desert heat. You smile, imagining it. A falcon, feathers glinting in the sun, standing guard over blocks of ice, as if he understood the value of something so strange, so fragile, in a place like this. And you wonder, did the bird really know what it was protecting? Or was it just instinct, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of sinking talons into cloth and flesh? Either way, the traders still tell the story, their voices rising with the wind, their eyes sparkling in the firelight. The sand shifts beneath you as you stretch, a slow, lazy movement that sends a few grains trickling down the side of a dune. Your fingers brush across the surface, feeling the soft, powdery texture, and you think again of the ice hidden beneath the earth, wrapped in camel hair, packed in straw, maybe even guarded by a falcon's distant descendant. It's a strange thing, isn't it? All this effort, all this tradition, just to keep something cold in a place that's anything but. you catch a soft sound, a faint clink, like metal tapping gently against stone. One of the traders is tinkering with something by the fire, a small, intricate tool that looks like it might fall apart if you breathe on it too hard. It's an old mechanism, he explains when you ask, a kind of balance scale they use to measure not just weight, but value. How much ice for how many dates? How much salt for a bolt of cloth? How much risk for the promise of something that melts in your hands if you're not fast enough? It's all a balancing act, he says, a wry smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. The desert takes, the desert gives, and you just try to keep your hands steady on the scales. You nod, not quite sure what to say. The wind shifts, carrying a faint, eerie whistle across the dunes, and the traders fall quiet, as if listening for something only they can hear. It's the kind of moment that makes your skin prickle, the air charged with something unseen. But then the sound fades, and the traders chuckle softly, muttering that it's just the wind playing tricks. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding, feeling the tension melt away like ice in the desert. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sounds wrap around you. The low murmur of voices, the faint rustle of fabric, the quiet sigh of the wind. And for a moment, you feel like you could drift here forever. Weightless, timeless, part of the sand and the stars. But the desert, as always, has more to show you. Morning comes slow, slipping into the dunes like honey, poured from a tilted jar, thick, golden, and shimmering. The traders are already stirring, their faces shadowed with sleep, but their hands busy. Blankets are folded, camel saddles adjusted, ropes checked and rechecked. The air feels cooler than you'd expect, almost crisp, like the desert is holding its breath before the sun remembers how to burn. You stretch, the stiffness in your joints reminding you that sand, for all its softness, is not the most forgiving bed. The grains cling to your clothes, your hair, the insides of your shoes, tiny stubborn reminders that the desert leaves its mark on everything it touches. You brush it off absent-mindedly, but you know it's a losing battle. The traders gather around a small pit they dug the night before, revealing the ice hidden beneath layers of straw and camel hair. There it is again, the strange, improbable treasure, still holding its shape, glistening faintly in the early light. The edges have softened, beads of water forming like tiny tears along the sides. But it's there, solid, cold, defiant against the desert's quiet hunger. They move carefully, lifting the ice with practiced hands, and you notice how their fingers leave faint, foggy prints on the surface. There's something almost reverent about it, as if they're handling an ancient artifact, not just frozen water. And in a way, they are. One trader, a wiry man with a face like weathered leather, and a voice that sounds like it's been sandpapered by years of shouting into the wind, leans closer and mutters a phrase that sticks in your mind. We don't just trade ice, we trade time. You pause, letting that sink in. Trade time. You glance at the block of ice again, the way it melts quietly under the sun's rising heat. And it clicks. Ice, in the desert, is borrowed time. A pause in the inevitable. A fragile, glistening moment stolen from the heat, carried on the backs of camels and the hopes of men. It's a temporary triumph. A small, shimmering rebellion against the rules of nature. As the caravan moves on, you fall into step, your feet sinking into the sand, the sun already warming your shoulders. The traders' voices drift in the air, their words a lazy rhythm that blends with the soft clink of gear and the gentle creak of camel saddles. They're talking about the old days again, about a time when the ice trade wasn't just a luxury, but a necessity. They tell a story about a sheikh's daughter, beautiful and fierce, who insisted on serving chilled rosewater at her wedding feast. The ice was carried from far away, packed in layers of straw, guarded day and night. And when it finally arrived, days late, half melted, it was celebrated like a gift from the gods. They say the guests wept when they sipped the cold drink, tears mixing with the fragrant water, not just from the beauty of the moment, but from the sheer effort it took to make it happen. And then, of course, there are the quieter facts, those little strange details that slip into the story like sand between your fingers. Like the way some traders believed that camel hair, when woven tight enough, could insulate better than straw alone. Or that certain plants, crushed and packed into the ice, could help it last longer. Or that sometimes a camel would refuse to carry a load of ice, no matter how much coaxing or cursing was involved. Historians, as always, argue about the specifics. Did the sheikh's daughter really have chilled rosewater at her wedding? Were the ice pits as common as the stories say? Or are these tales just the desert's way of whispering dreams into the ears of those who pass through? But standing here, sweat starting to trickle down your spine, the taste of last night's tea still faint on your tongue, you can't help but believe it. Because if you're going to cross the desert, carrying something as ridiculous as ice, you'd better have a story to go with it. The sun climbs higher, turning the sand from soft gold to blinding white, and the camels plod on, their long legs steady, their jaws working lazily. The traders' voices rise and fall in a familiar pattern, their laughter soft, the sound of men who know they're part of something bigger, even if it's just a small, strange corner of history. You adjust your scarf, feeling the scratch of fabric against your neck, and glance down at your own hands. They're dusty, dry, lined with faint creases of sweat and sand. You flex your fingers, wondering what it would feel like to hold a block of ice right now. Cold, heavy, a reminder that sometimes the most precious things in life are the ones that melt away if you're not careful. The breeze picks up, carrying the scent of camel hair, warm straw, and a hint of something metallic, like the faint memory of rain on hot stone. You let it wash over you, the sound of the wind like a whisper in your ear, promising more stories just over the next dune. And you keep walking, the sand shifting beneath your feet, the sun glinting off the traders' blades, and the ice, quiet, melting, patient, tucked away, a secret held tight in the heart of the desert. The day stretches long and slow, the sun leaning heavy over the dunes, its light shimmering off the sand like liquid gold. You feel it on your skin, a warm weight that seeps into your bones, and you start to understand why the Bedouins move when they do. Early mornings, late evenings, always chasing the cooler hours, dodging the worst of the sun's quiet fury. The traders walk with the patience of men who have learned to measure time not in minutes or hours, but in how many steps it takes to cross a dune, how long it takes for the sweat to bead on their foreheads, how fast the ice sweats beneath its layers of protection. You glance at the cargo, the bundles of straw and camel hair lashed tightly against the camels' broad backs, and you wonder how much has melted by now. How much of that precious, improbable ice is left, clinging stubbornly in the heat. One of the traders, a tall man with a long, sun-bleached scarf wound around his head like a turban, notices your gaze and gives a lopsided smile. "It's not the ice we carry," he says, his voice soft and slow. "It's the hope." You nod, not sure what to say. Because it's true, isn't it? The ice is just water, frozen and fleeting. But the hope, that's what keeps the caravan moving forward, step by steady step. As the sun starts to dip, long shadows stretching like dark fingers across the sand, the traders gather in a loose circle, setting down their bundles and loosening the camels' straps. They move with practiced ease, their hands deft, their motions quiet, like a ritual passed down through generations. And tonight, there's a special reason for the pause. It's time to open one of the pits. They work quickly, digging down through the sand with curved blades and bare hands. the grain spilling over their fingers in slow cascades. The sand is cooler beneath the surface, damp even, clinging to their skin like flour to dough. They brush it aside carefully, layer by layer, until they reach the woven mats and camel hair insulation. The air smells different here. Damp, earthy, tinged with the faint, musty sweetness of old straw. And there it is, the ice. Not as perfect as when they left, of course. The edges have softened. The surface glistens with tiny beads of water that catch the fading light like diamonds. But it's still there, solid, real, a small victory in a place where victories are rare and precious. They lift the ice gently, their hands red from the cold, and pass around slivers chipped away with the tip of a knife. You're handed a piece, small, clear, cool against your palm. It melts quickly, a trickle running down your wrist, and when you press it to your lips, it's like tasting a secret. A fleeting, impossible secret, melting away before you can quite hold on to it. They share the ice sparingly, small sips of cold water, a few drops poured over a dried fig, a sliver tucked into a cloth and held against the forehead of a trader who looks a little too flushed from the day's heat. It's not much, but out here, it's everything. And then, as the traders settle back into their places, one of the younger men leans forward, his voice barely a whisper. He tells a story, half believed, half doubted, about a hidden chamber somewhere in the desert. A place where ice doesn't melt, where it's kept, perfectly preserved, in an underground cave so deep and so cold that even the desert can't touch it. They say it's guarded by the spirits of the sand, watched over by the winds, and that only those who know the right path can find it. Of course, the others laugh. Soft, easy chuckles, the kind that say, "Sure, kid, whatever helps you sleep at night." But the young man smiles, unbothered, as if he knows something they don't. And here's the thing. Historians still debate whether such a place ever existed. Some say it's just a story, a dream spun around a fire to make the night pass faster. Others argue there are ruins in the desert that hint at something stranger, ancient chambers, deep wells, stone-lined tunnels that lead to places where the air is cold and damp, even in the heart of the sun's fury. You think about that as you lean back, the last sliver of ice melting on your tongue. You think about how the desert keeps its secrets, how the wind whispers and the dunes shift, how stories can get buried in the sand, just like the ice itself. The camels snort and shift, the fire crackles, and the traders' voices fade into a low, murmuring lullaby. The sky deepens into indigo, the stars sharp and cold, and the air smells of smoke, sweat, and the faint, sweet tang of melting ice. And you lie there, staring up at the sky, the weight of the sand beneath you, the warmth of the fire at your side, and the memory of ice lingering on your skin. The night deepens, the sky a velvet sea stitched with stars, each one blinking slowly as if watching over the quiet caravan below. You lie still, the sand cool beneath your back, and listen to the soft sounds of the camp settling in, the low hum of voices, the occasional clink of a metal cup, the gentle creak of rope as camels shift their weight in the darkness. The fire has burned down to a warm glow, and the air smells like smoke, wool, and a faint trace of the day's heat still rising off the dunes. Someone is humming softly, a tune without words, just a low, drifting melody that blends with the night wind. It's the kind of sound that makes you want to close your eyes and let the world blur. But you keep them open, watching the flicker of the flames dance across faces, the traders' silhouettes leaning in, their hands moving lazily as they talk. Tonight, the conversation drifts to weddings, desert weddings, where ice was once a luxury that turned an ordinary gathering into something magical. They tell of a time, not so long ago, when a wealthy sheikh's son married under the stars, and the family spared no expense. Ice was brought in from far away, packed tight and guarded like treasure. They say guests were served chilled drinks in clay cups, the condensation beating on the outside like tiny, glistening jewels. You imagine it. The sound of laughter, the scent of roasted lamb and sweet spices filling the air, and the clink of cups raised in celebration. The bride, draped in a flowing robe embroidered with silver thread, sits beneath a canopy of woven date fronds, her face half hidden, but her eyes sparkling. Someone carries a tray of sugared sweets, and in the center, sherbet, made with rose water and served ice cold, a shock of coolness in the heat. And you think, ice at a desert wedding? That's like bringing a snow globe to the Sahara. Absurd, impractical, and yet so human. A reminder that even in the harshest places, people reach for beauty, for pleasure, for something that makes life feel a little less like survival and a little more like celebration. The traders joke about it now, of course. One of them snorts, saying his cousin once tried to impress a wedding party by bringing a single block of ice strapped to the back of a camel. By the time they arrived, the ice was half melted, the camel in a foul mood. And the cousin, well, let's just say he was not the hero of the story. They laugh, a soft ripple of amusement that fades into the crackling of the fire. You take a sip of tea, the warmth soothing against the cool night air, and listen as another trader, older, with a face carved from years in the sun, speaks in a low, thoughtful tone. He says that the desert teaches you patience, but it also teaches you to appreciate the moment, because everything melts eventually. Ice, time, even the strongest stone gets worn down by the wind. He pauses, then adds with a wry grin that this is why he always eats his dates slowly. The others laugh, the sound dry and easy, and someone tosses a date pit into the fire, where it hisses briefly before disappearing into the coals. The conversation drifts, like the smoke rising into the dark sky, and you let your thoughts wander with it. You think of the ice, tucked away in its pits, slowly melting into the earth. You think of the desert, waked and quiet, its secrets buried deep beneath the sand. And you think of all the hands that have passed over these dunes, traders, warriors, dreamers, each one carrying their own stories, their own small victories against the inevitable. The night air cools further, and you wrap your scarf tighter, feeling the rough fabric against your cheek. The breeze carries the faint scent of camel sweat and firewood, and somewhere in the distance, a jackal calls, its cry thin and sharp, a brief, haunting note that fades quickly into the quiet. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and imagine you're at that wedding long ago, your hands wrapped around a cold clay cup, the ice clinking softly inside, the sweetness of sherbet lingering on your tongue. The music drifts on the breeze, the stars seem closer, and for a fleeting instant, the desert feels like a place where anything is possible. You open your eyes again, and the fire has burned lower, the traders' voices softer, almost a whisper now. You feel the weight of the sand beneath you, the steady breath of the desert, the slow, patient melting of ice somewhere nearby. And you think, yes, this is what it means to be here, in this strange, beautiful place, to hold on to something fleeting, to taste the cool sweetness of a story told by firelight, to listen as the desert hums softly around you, waiting for the next dawn. Morning arrives slowly, spilling golden light over the dunes, each grain of sand catching the sun like a tiny spark. You blink against the brightness, feeling the warmth seep into your skin, into your bones, as if the desert itself is quietly reclaiming you. The traders stir, their movements slow and deliberate, the kind of practiced rhythm that comes from a lifetime of mornings just like this, sand in their boots, sun on their backs, and the weight of the day ahead pressing gently but firmly on their shoulders. The camels groan awake, their long necks stretching, jaws working lazily as they chew on nothing in particular. The fire from last night is little more than a pile of faintly smoking embers, and the smell of charred wood and camel hair lingers in the air, mixing with the sharper tang of sweat and the soft, earthy scent of the desert itself. You sit up, brushing sand from your clothes, and feel the dry grains tumble down like tiny beads. They stick to everything, your skin, your hair, the creases in your palms, as if the desert is trying to claim you as part of its endless, shifting body. One of the traders, a lean man with a crooked smile and eyes that seem to hold both the weight of the sun and the shimmer of the stars, offers you a sliver of something wrapped in cloth. It's cold against your fingers, shockingly so, and when you unwrap it, you see a small piece of ice, clear and delicate, like a sliver of glass. You press it to your lips, and it melts almost instantly, a single cool drop sliding down your chin. The trader chuckles softly and says, "Ice melts, but the memory stays longer." You wonder if he means it literally, or if it's just something people say out here, a kind of desert wisdom woven from years of watching the sun do its slow, relentless work. As the caravan starts moving, the traders' voices drift in the air, a quiet hum of conversation. They talk about the underground chambers, those hidden ice vaults dug deep into the earth, lined with straw, animal skins, and sometimes even palm leaves woven into tight mats. Some say they were built centuries ago, passed down from father to son, generation after generation, each pit a secret known only to a few. Others claim they were more recent, a clever trick devised by traders who understood the desert better than the rest of us ever will. Historians, of course, debate this endlessly, whether the Bedouins truly mastered the art of storing ice, or whether it's all a romantic exaggeration. But you don't need a historian's certainty when you're here, feeling the chill of that tiny sliver of ice on your tongue, tasting its fleeting promise. Sometimes you think, a story is truer than a fact, because it lingers in the heart long after the details have melted away. The caravan winds its way along the dunes, the sand shifting beneath the camels' feet in a soft, rhythmic crunch. A breeze picks up, dry and warm, carrying with it the faintest hint of something sweet. Dates, maybe, or the last traces of tea from breakfast. The traders talk about trade routes now, about deals struck in distant markets, about spices, silks, and sometimes ice. They say that in some ports, a single block of ice was worth more than a small sack of gold. Because gold you could keep, but ice? Ice was a fleeting luxury, a whisper of something rare and impossible in the heat. You imagine it, a merchant's stall crowded with goods, the shouts of buyers haggling over prices, and in the center, a small basin holding a melting blocks of ice, drawing in curious stares. Someone dips a cloth into it, wrings it out over their face, and sighs as the coolness trickles down their skin. Others gather around, hands outstretched, hoping for just a drop, a moment of relief. And the merchant, standing behind it all, smiles. Not just because of the coins piling up in his purse, but because for a moment, he's holding something almost magical. Something that shouldn't exist here, and yet, somehow, does. The breeze shifts again, carrying with it a low, faint sound, the distant rumble of hooves. The traders pause, their bodies stilling, eyes narrowing toward the horizon. A caravan approaches, far off, just a shimmer at first, then the shapes of camels and figures taking form against the hazy light. You feel the air shift, an unspoken tension, a quiet calculation. Will they be friendly? Will they want to trade? Or is this the start of a silent standoff, a dance of cautious glances and measured words? You watch as the two groups draw closer, the traders raising their hands in greeting, their smiles slow but careful. The new arrivals respond in kind, and soon, They're exchanging goods, news, and stories. Because out here, information is as valuable as water. You listen as they trade rumors of distant markets, of changing prices for salt and silk, and, of course, ice. One man claims to have seen an ice pit so deep, so perfectly constructed, that it could keep ice for months. Another laughs, shaking his head, saying, "That's just a story told to impress gullible travelers." But as they talk, you notice a glint in their eyes, that small flicker of wonder that never quite goes out, even in the most seasoned traders. Because deep down, they all want to believe in the possibility of something extraordinary hidden beneath the sand. And so do you. The sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the dunes, and the camels begin to stir again, ready for the next stretch of the journey. The traders pack up their goods, their laughter soft, their hands moving with practiced ease. And as you fall into step behind them, you glance back at the pit, now covered once more, the ice tucked away like a secret, waiting for the next night's cool breath. The sand shifts beneath your feet, and the wind hums low, carrying stories, some true, some not, and most somewhere in between. The sun dips lower, stretching shadows across the sand like long, lazy fingers. The heat softens, but the air still hums with warmth, a quiet, persistent glow that clings to your skin. You feel it in the soles of your feet, in the sweat drying on your back, in the slow, steady rhythm of the caravan's progress. The camels move in their patient, swaying dance, their ears twitching, tails flicking lazily at invisible flies. The traders' voices are low now, their stories softer, like the desert itself is asking for a little peace. You find yourself walking alongside one of the older traders, his face lined like the bark of an ancient tree, his hands rough and worn from years of rope, leather, and sand. He points toward a dip in the dunes and says, almost like it's an afterthought, "That's where the watermelons once grew." You blink, startled. "Watermelons? Out here?" He nods, a slow grin spreading across his face. "A long time ago, when the rains came more often, the ground held a little more than just sand. You could bury ice in the pits and, if you knew the right trick, you could grow a melon or two." He chuckles softly, his voice dry as the air. Of course, not everyone believed it. Still don't. Some historians say it's just a story. But I've tasted a desert melon once. Sweet as any you'll find in the market. Cold, too, if you got it at the right time. You imagine it. Melons growing in the desert, their green rinds swelling against the golden dunes, hidden away like small, round miracles. It sounds impossible. And yet, here you are, walking through a desert where ice travels on the backs of camels. So maybe impossible is just another word for unexpected. The trader's story drifts into another, and soon they're talking about the strange things people have carried across these sands. Not just ice and melons, but other oddities too. There's a tale about a man who once tried to transport a caged parrot. Yes, a parrot, in a basket lined with damp cloth, hoping to sell it as a rare treasure in a far-off market. The parrot, of course, had its own opinions about this arrangement, and spent most of the journey loudly insulting the camels. They say it learned a few words in Arabic, a few in Persian, and at least one curse in Greek, though no one's quite sure how. You smile at the thought, an angry parrot riding atop a camel, squawking insults into the wind. It's the kind of image that sticks with you, isn't it? The desert isn't just shine and sun. It's full of little absurdities like that. Small, strange moments that make the heat, the hunger, the endless miles feel just a bit lighter. The traders pass around a pouch of dried apricots, their sweetness sticky and rich, and you take one, chewing slowly as you walk. The flavor bursts on your tongue, a sharp contrast to the dry air, and for a moment, it feels like a gift, like something soft in a world of hard edges. The conversation shifts again, as conversations in the desert often do, blending fact and fancy, memory and myth, all woven together like a tapestry fraying at the edges. Someone mentions an oasis where the water is so cold it numbs your teeth, and another swears there's a cave deep in the cliffs where ice forms naturally, even in the heat of summer. The others shake their heads, half doubting, half hoping. The desert does that to you. It makes you want to believe in the impossible, even when you know better. And you think about that, about how much of life is spent chasing things that melt in your hands, how people have always found ways to carry hope across the harshest landscapes. Whether it's ice packed in straw, a parrot in a basket, or a single stubborn watermelon growing in a place it shouldn't. The sand crunches beneath your feet, the sound soft and steady, and the sky shifts pink, then orange, then that soft, endless indigo. The stars blink awake, quiet and patient, and the wind hums low, a familiar tune that wraps around you like a thread. You glance at the traders, their faces lit by the last traces of sunset, and you realize they're not just moving goods across the desert. They're moving stories. Melting, fleeting, impossible stories. And you're a part of it now, too. You take a deep breath, the air cool and dry, and feel the weight of the day settle into your bones, the rhythm of the caravan lulling you into a quiet, steady peace. The ice is still there, packed away, waiting. And so are the stories. The sky deepens, a soft, inky velvet draped over the dunes, and the stars seem to breathe with you, steady, slow, like a quiet pulse in the night. The caravan moves slower now, the camels' footsteps muffled by the cool sand, their breaths visible in the thin moonlight as small warm clouds that fade quickly into the dark. The traders murmur softly, their voices blending with the rustle of fabric, the faint creak of leather, and the low rhythmic sigh of the desert wind. You catch a whisper of a story, half joked, half true, about a trader who once tried to bribe a caravan guard with a block of ice. The details shift, depending on who's telling it, but the core stays the same. Somewhere along a dusty trade route, two caravans met, one carrying spices and silks, the other heavy with blocks of ice wrapped in straw and camel hair. The guard, weary from the heat and the weight of his duties, was offered a deal. Let the ice pass without inspection, and he could have a sliver of it for himself. It sounds simple enough, doesn't it? A small, melting piece of ice in exchange for looking the other way. But the story, as stories do, has a twist. They say the guard accepted the ice, held it like a gem, and in the heat of the desert, it slipped from his fingers, splat, right into the sand. Gone in an instant, just a damp patch and a few stubborn grains sticking to the palms of his hands. And there he stood, stunned, watching the ice vanish, while the trader smiled and slipped away, his cargo untouched. Some historians argue whether such a story could ever be true. They point out that ice, as rare as it was, wouldn't have been casually offered in bribes. Others suggest it's a parable of sorts, a quiet lesson about the fleeting nature of fortune, about how some things, no matter how much you want to hold on to them, simply melt away. You glance down at the sand, imagining that moment, the guard's rough hands, the ice melting into the earth, as if it had never been there at all. And you wonder how many moments in history have been just like that. Small, quiet, unrecorded, slipping away before anyone could write them down. The traders laugh about it now, of course. They say the guard probably told a grander version of the tale later, how he fought off a dozen thieves to protect a caravan, or how he was offered a chest of jewels and turned it down because he was too honest. That's the thing about stories in the desert. They shift like the dunes themselves, changing shape with every telling, softening at the edges, the truth somewhere in the middle. You adjust your scarf, the fabric brushing against your cheek, and feel the cool breeze rising, a soft, steady hum that fills the space between words. The night smells faintly of roasted coffee and camel sweat, a sharp, earthy scent that somehow feels comforting. The traders pass around a small pouch of dates, and you take one, the skin wrinkled, the flesh sticky and sweet on your tongue, the taste grounding you in the moment. The stars above seem to flicker in time with the quiet conversation, and you hear someone mention a festival, an old celebration from long ago, when ice was brought in as a gift from the gods. They say that at the height of summer, when the air shimmered and the earth seemed to crackle with heat, blocks of ice would be carried into the square, and children would gather around, eyes wide, watching as the cold mist curled from the blocks like smoke. People would touch it, gasp at the chill, and laugh at the way it melted into little rivulets, trickling into the dusty cracks of the earth. It sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? Ice as a spectacle, a miracle, a fleeting moment of wonder in a place where the sun rules everything. But as you sit here, listening to the traders' voices, the wind tugging gently at the edges of the tent cloth, you can almost see it, the shimmer of melting ice, the laughter, the cool droplets splashing onto hot, cracked ground. You close your eyes, just for a breath, and let the story wrap around you like a warm blanket in the cool night. The desert hums its quiet song, the rustle of sand, the low murmur of traders' voices, the soft breathing of the camels, and beneath it all, the slow, steady melting of ice hidden deep in the earth, waiting for someone to dig it up, touch it, taste it, and believe in it, if only for a moment. The sand shifts under your hand, soft and warm, and you think of that ice slipping through the guard's fingers, vanishing before he could hold on to it. You smile, just a little, because you know that feeling too. We all do. The stars overhead glimmer like tiny, distant fires, and the moon hangs low, casting a pale silvery glow across the dunes. The caravan has settled for the night, the camels huddled together in a quiet, groaning pile, their sides rising and falling with slow, steady breaths. The traders lie sprawled on their mats, their voices low and drifting, as if even words are weighed down by the desert's hush. You pull your scarf a little tighter, feeling the scratch of the fabric against your skin, and lean back into the sand. It's cool beneath you now, the heat of the day fading into a kind of sleepy, lingering warmth that clings to the dunes like a memory. The fire crackles softly, sending tiny sparks upward, and the air carries the faintest scent of roasted dates and old leather. One of the older traders, his beard thick and wiry, clears his throat and starts to speak, his voice soft and slow, like a story worn smooth from years of telling. He talks about the nights like this, when the air feels almost hot, the wind gentle and cool, and the sand holds just a little of the day's warmth. He says these are the nights when you feel the weight of time the most, when you remember that even in the desert, there are moments that feel almost peaceful. He tells you that when the nights grow still and the stars hang heavy, you can hear the ice beneath the earth. Not with your ears, exactly, but with something deeper, like a sense in your bones. He leans in, his eyes crinkled with a quiet smile, and whispers that if you listen closely, you can hear the slow, patient drip of melting ice deep in the sand, a sound so soft it feels like it might be a dream. And maybe it is. But the others nod, their faces thoughtful in the firelight, as if they too have heard it on nights like this, when the air is cool and the world holds its breath, and the ice beneath the dunes sees quietly into the earth. You close your eyes, just for a moment, and imagine it. The hidden pits, dark and damp, lined with straw and camel hair, the ice resting like a secret treasure in the darkness. You picture the slow melt, the drops trickling down, cool and soft, sinking into the sand grain by grain. It's a strange thought. ice slipping silently into the desert, unnoticed by anyone but the earth itself. The traders share more stories of long nights spent huddled around small fires, of watching the stars shift across the sky like ancient, silent caravans, of hearing the distant cries of jackals and the soft rustle of wind through the dunes. They talk about the taste of cold water on a hot day, the way it shocks your mouth, makes you pause, makes you grateful in a way that's hard to explain. They talk about the ice, always the ice, and how it's more than just frozen water out here. It's a promise, a reminder that even in the harshest places, there are small, fleeting moments of relief. They laugh quietly about how sometimes, when the heat was unbearable, they'd hold a small piece of ice in their hands just to feel it melt, to remind themselves that it was real, that they had carried it across the sand and kept it, even if only for a little while. You can't help but smile, imagining them standing there, hands outstretched, letting the ice drip away like a tiny, silent rebellion against the desert's rules. And you think, there's something beautiful in that, isn't there? In holding on to something that melts, knowing it won't last but cherishing it all the same. A breeze stirs, lifting a few grains of sand into the air, and you watch as they dance in the firelight. Tiny sparks that vanish before they touch the ground. The sound of the wind is soft, almost like a lullaby, and the night hums with a kind of quiet contentment. One of the traders hums an old tune, the melody rising and falling in a slow, hypnotic rhythm, and the others join in, their voices low and rough, blending together in the dark. It's not a song you know, but the tune settles into your chest, a gentle weight that matches the rise and fall of the dunes. You hum along without thinking, the sound vibrating softly in your throat, and for a moment, you feel like you belong here, part of the slow, steady rhythm of the desert. The fire crackles, the camels snore, soft and low, like tired old men muttering in their sleep. And somewhere beneath you, hidden deep in the sand, the ice melts quietly, its story folding into the earth, waiting for someone else to find it, to listen, to believe. The night stretches long, wrapping you in a quiet so deep it feels like the desert itself is holding its breath. The stars gleam sharper now, as if the sky has been polished clean, and the moon hangs low, painting the dunes in soft silver. You lie there, listening to the faint crackle of the fire, the soft snorts of the camels, the occasional rustle as a trader shifts in his sleep. The air feels lighter, cooler, but still heavy with the scent of smoke, sand, and the quiet, persistent weight of stories untold. And then, almost as if the desert has been waiting for the right moment, someone speaks. A younger trader, his voice still rough with sleep, but eager. Like a boy on the verge of sharing a secret he's only half sure is true. He leans forward, his eyes wide and bright in the firelight, and he tells you a story about a sheik who built a pyramid, not of stone, but of sand and ice. You blink, the image catching in your mind like a mirage. A pyramid of ice. In the desert? Yes, he insists. They say the sheikh was a man of impossible dreams, a ruler who wanted to show that even the desert could be tamed. So he ordered his men to build a pyramid, layer upon layer, each tier packed tight with blocks of ice wrapped in straw and cloth. They worked through the night, racing the dawn, their hands raw from the cold, the heat, the sheer absurdity of it all. And for a few brief, shining hours, it stood, a shimmering mountain in the sand, glistening under the moonlight like a frozen jewel. They say people came from miles around to see it, to marvel at the sight of ice gleaming in the desert, to run their hands across its cold surface and feel the impossible made real. But of course the sun rose, as it always does, and the ice began to weep. Slowly at first, then in steady streams, dripping down the sides of the pyramid, soaking the sand at its base. The traders say it melted so quickly that by midday, all that was left was a soggy pile of straw and a damp patch in the earth. The sheikh, they say, watched it all with a strange, quiet smile, as if he had known all along that it couldn't last. Some historians, those careful, practical sorts, claim this story is a myth, a fable spun by traders with too much time and not enough water. But sitting here, beneath the stars, you can almost see it. The glistening pyramid, the awestruck faces, the slow, inevitable melting. And maybe it doesn't matter if it really happened or not. Maybe the story itself is enough. A reminder that even in a place where the sun burns hottest, people have always dared to dream of something cool, something fleeting, something beautiful. The traders nod as the story ends, their faces thoughtful, their eyes reflecting the fire's glow. One of them mutters, "He built it just to watch it melt." The others chuckle, but it's a soft sound, tinged with something almost like respect. You let the story settle in your chest, feeling its weight, not heavy exactly, but lingering, like a slow, cool breath against your skin. You think about the sheikh, standing there as his impossible pyramid dripped away, and you wonder, was it a lesson? A warning? Or just a man's quiet way of saying, "Look what I can do," even if only for a moment. The wind stirs again, lifting the edge of a blanket, sending a few grains of sand skittering across the fire's dying embers. The night hums, low and soft, a lullaby whispered by the dunes. Somewhere beneath you, the ice in the hidden pits is still there, melting slowly, quietly, unnoticed by the stars. And as you close your eyes, you think about the small, strange moments that make up the world. A melting pyramid, a sliver of ice on a camel's back, the cool taste of water on a burning day. You think about how much of life is like that. Beautiful, fleeting, and gone before you can quite hold it in your hands. You sigh, the sound barely audible, and let the story drift with the wind, folding into the dark like a soft, cool thread. The night deepens, and the fire has burned down to a few stubborn embers, pulsing softly in the dark like the last heartbeat of the day. The traders lie sprawled in loose clusters, some snoring gently, others murmuring in their sleep, their words half-formed, like fragments of dreams whispered into the sand. The camels groan now and then, a low, sleepy rumble that seems to rise from the earth itself, and the breeze hums its steady tune, soft and persistent, like a lullaby woven from dust and time. You lie back, feeling the cool press of the sand against your spine, and stare up at the stars. They glimmer sharp and cold, scattered across the sky, like shards of ancient ice, each one a silent witness to the endless drift of caravans across the dunes. And somewhere beneath you, the ice melts quietly, unseen, its story slipping into the earth, drop by drop. The traders' voices rise again, soft and slow, as the night lingers. They speak of taste. Yes, taste. The strange, specific flavor of meltwater in the desert. One of them, an older man with a deep, rasping voice and hands rough as camel hide, swears you can taste the journey in it. That desert ice isn't like the ice you find in city markets, clean and sharp and forgettable. No, he says, desert ice carries a memory. A trace of the straw, the camel hair, the dust it's traveled through, the hands that packed it tight. It's a little salty, maybe, or earthy, like the smell of dry grass after rain, or the faint metallic tang of a blade left out under the stars. Another trader laughs and says he once tasted ice so strange it was almost sweet. They joke about how a good meltwater drink is worth more than a pouch of dates, and how some men, in the heat of the desert, would trade anything for just a sip of that cool, fleeting taste. And then, as always, the stories shift. They talk of the traders who tried to stretch their luck too far, those who misjudged the heat or the route or the weight of their cargo. Men who chased the promise of ice across the desert, only to arrive with nothing but damp, ruined bundles and disappointed buyers. Some say they wept at the loss, their tears drying faster than the ice itself. Others simply shrugged and moved on, because in the desert, you learn quickly that nothing is guaranteed, not even the things you guard most carefully. There's one tale they tell, a strange little story that makes the younger traders shake their heads, half believing, half mocking. It's about a caravan that carried a shipment of ice all the way from the coast. Weeks of careful packing and sleepless nights, only to have the cargo stolen by a band of thieves who had no idea what they were taking. The thieves, desperate, dusty, and half-mad from the heat, thought they'd stumbled on treasure. They loaded the blocks onto their camels and vanished into the dunes, only to watch, horrified, as the ice melted away beneath them, leaving nothing but wet sand and a lingering sense of betrayal. The traders laugh at the image. Thieves chasing after puddles, their faces burning redder than the desert sun. But as they laugh, there's a softness in their eyes, as if they know that, deep down, they too are chasing something that melts, that slips away the moment you think you've got it in your hands. The fire crackles, sending up a tiny spark that fades before it reaches the sky, and you shift in the sand, feeling the warmth fade from the air as the night settles heavier around you. Someone hums a quiet tune, the melody simple and familiar, a song about a trader who carried ice across the desert and lost it all, yet found something sweeter in the journey than he ever expected. And you think, yes, that's it, isn't it? The ice is never really the point. It's the story you carry, the coolness on your tongue for a fleeting second, the memory of it long after the last drop has sunk into the sand. You close your eyes, the breeze brushing your cheek like a soft, cool hand, and you drift, half listening, half dreaming, as the desert breathes around you. The sand shifts, the stars whisper, and somewhere, deep beneath the dunes, the ice melts on, slow and patient, waiting for the next story to find it. The dawn creeps in slow, the sky softening from black to deep purple, to the faintest blush of pink, like the desert itself is slowly waking from a long, quiet dream. The traders stir, stretching in the cool air, their breath visible in small, quick clouds that vanish almost as soon as they form. The camels grunt and shuffle, their long legs unfolding with the lazy, groaning reluctance of creatures who know exactly how long this day will be. The fire is just a faint smear of warmth now, a glow beneath the ashes, and the air smells like cold sand and old smoke. You sit up, rubbing grit from your eyes, and watch as the traders move with practiced ease, shaking out mats, tightening straps, loading bundles onto the camels' backs. The ice is checked first, always the ice. They pull back the coverings, layers of straw and camel hair, and there it is, smaller than the night before, sweating quietly in the growing light, the edges softened but still holding. A victory, however temporary. One of the traders, a man with a crooked smile and sun-cracked lips, claps you on the shoulder and says, "Every sunrise, you check the ice first. If it's still there, you keep moving. If not, well, you tell a story about what it used to be." You laugh, a quiet, breathy sound, and the trader grins like he's heard that laugh 100 times before. The caravan moves on, the camels swaying, the sand crunching softly underfoot. The sun climbs slow but steady, and already the heat is starting to creep back into the world, seeping into your skin, making the air feel heavy and bright. You pull your scarf higher, the fabric rough against your cheek, and fall into the rhythm of the march. Step, crunch, breath, repeat. The traders talk as they walk, voices low and steady, and today's story is about a man who lost everything trying to keep his ice safe. They say he built a pit so deep it could swallow a camel whole, lined it with clay and straw, packed it tight, sealed it with mud. He even paid guards to sit by it day and night, swatting away thieves, chasing off curious animals. And yet, when he opened it months later, the ice was gone. Not melted, gone. Some say it evaporated, the heat of the desert pulling it back into the air like a thief in the night. Others whisper that the sand itself drank it. Yes, drank it, as if the earth decided it was thirsty and took it for itself. And then there's the quiet theory, the one they tell with a wink and a shrug, that the guards were in on it all along, that they stole the ice little by little, sold it to other traders for a pouch of dates, a bolt of cloth, a few silver coins. Because in the desert, they say, everyone has a price, even for ice. You glance at the traders, their faces weathered, their eyes bright beneath the folds of their scarves, and you wonder which version they believe, or if they care at all. Out here, a story is a story. Whether it's true or not is just a detail. The sun climbs higher, and you can feel the heat beginning to rise off the sand in waves, distorting the air, making the dunes shimmer like soft, golden mirages. The camels plod on, their shadows stretching long behind them, and the trader's conversation fades into a hum, blending with the wind, the soft creak of leather, the occasional grunt from a camel who's had just about enough of this journey. Your throat feels dry, the skin on your lips tight and cracked, and you think, what would a sip of meltwater taste like right now? Cold, clear, almost impossibly sweet. You imagine holding a piece of ice in your palm, watching it glisten and shrink, the drops running over your skin like tiny rivers. You imagine the shock of it against your tongue, the way it would sting, then soothe, then vanish. And you wonder, how many drops of ice have melted into the desert, unnoticed? How many moments of cool relief have slipped away, lost to the sand, remembered only in the quiet stories told at night, under stars that have seen it all before? The caravan moves on, the footprints left behind already beginning to fade as the wind brushes them away, soft and slow. And the ice, wrapped tight, guarded carefully, melting steadily, rides quietly on the backs of camels, a secret slipping through time. You keep walking, the sun on your back, the taste of stories lingering in the air, and you think, maybe it's not the ice that matters. Maybe it's the fact that someone tried to keep it, to carry it, to believe in something so fleeting, and that somehow is enough. The sun rides higher now, a blazing coin pinned to a cloudless sky, and the heat presses down like an invisible hand, heavy and steady. Your scarf clings damp to your skin, the air so dry it feels like it's drinking the moisture from your breath. The sand glows bright, each grain a tiny, glinting ember, and the dunes seem to shimmer as if they're breathing, expanding and contracting in the heat. The traders move slower now, their shoulders hunched, steps measured, their voices quieter, less talk, more focus. The camels plod on, their long lashes blinking against the sun, their jaws working lazily as they chew on nothing in particular. The air tastes like dust, hot and metallic, and every breath feels like a small, determined act of defiance. And yet, the caravan keeps moving. Always moving. The ice, packed tight in straw and camel hair, rides quietly, melting little by little, a secret tucked away in the heart of the journey. The traders start talking again, their words drifting like smoke in the heat. Someone mentions the echoes in the dunes, how sound travels strangely out here. A shout can carry for miles, they say, bouncing off the sand in ways that make it hard to tell where it came from. There's a story about a caravan that once followed the sound of their own voices, looping in circles for days, thinking they were chasing another group. They laughed when they realized, but it was a dry, hollow sound. the kind that tastes like sand in the back of your throat. Another trader shares a softer tale, his voice low, almost reverent. He talks about the echoes that aren't voices, about the whispers you hear when the wind is still, when the desert is so quiet that you can almost feel the pulse of the earth beneath your feet. They say the dunes remember, that they hold the sounds of traders long gone, of camels and caravans, of laughter and arguments, and quiet songs sung to the stars. If you stand very still, he says, you can hear them, soft as a breath, as if the desert itself is telling its story in the only way it knows. You pause, listening, the heat blurring the horizon, the sand warm beneath your fingers, and you swear you hear it too. Not words exactly, but a kind of hum, a deep, slow vibration that seems to settle into your bones. Maybe it's just the wind. Maybe it's nothing. Or maybe it's the ice, melting deep beneath the dunes, whispering its quiet, inevitable song. The traders fall into a rhythm again, their footsteps matching the slow sway of the camels. The sound of the sand is soft, almost hypnotic. Shh, 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 like a mother hushing a child. You think of the ice, still riding with you, smaller now, perhaps only a fraction of what it was when the journey began. And you wonder, how much longer will it last? How much has already been lost to the sun, to the wind, to the quiet hunger of the desert itself? But then, a trader grins at you, his teeth white against the dark cloth of his scarf, and says, "Doesn't matter. What we carry isn't just ice. It's the story of the ice." You smile, the sweat stinging your eyes, and you think, he's right, isn't he? The ice melts, but the story lingers, passed from mouth to mouth, campfire to campfire, carried like a whisper across the dunes. The sun dips lower now, the light softening, the heat easing just a little, and the traders begin to talk of home, of dates heavy on the trees, of children waiting by the fires, of the cool relief of shade beneath an old, knotted tree. They talk of the taste of cold water drawn fresh from a deep well, so cold it makes your teeth ache, so sweet you close your eyes with every sip. And they talk of the ice, of course, the ice that was carried, that melted, that fed the stories and the laughter and the long, slow days. The wind stirs again, lifting the edge of your scarf, brushing your face with a faint, dry kiss. You feel the grains of sand against your skin, warm and fine, and you think, yes, the desert keeps its secrets, but it also gives them away, one melting drop at a time. And you keep walking, your feet sinking softly into the sand, the sound of the caravan fading into the quiet hum of the dunes. The story is still unfolding, and you're part of it now, your steps, your breath, your memories blending into the long, slow song of the desert. The day fades, slow and golden, the last rays of sunlight stretching long across the sand, turning the dunes into soft, undulating shadows. The heat softens, easing its relentless grip, and the wind cools as if the desert itself is taking a breath after a long, patient day. The traders begin to settle again, their bodies weary but steady, their faces glowing faintly in the twilight, their voices low and murmuring as they prepare the camp for another night. You sink into the sand, feeling its warmth radiate up through your back, the grains fine and soft against your skin. The camels lie folded nearby, their long necks curved in lazy arcs, their eyes half closed as they drift between waking and sleep. The air hums faintly, the whisper of wind, the gentle rustle of cloth, the quiet, persistent presence of the desert holding everything in its vast, patient arms. The traders uncover the ice one last time. You watch as the coverings peel back, layer by careful layer, straw, camel hair, worn cloth, revealing what remains. The block has shrunk, of course. It's smaller now, edges rounded, surface glistening in the fading light. A few droplets slide down its sides, soaking into the straw, like a memory slipping quietly away. They pass it around, this last, fragile remnant of the journey. Each trader holds it for a moment, palms cradling the cold like a fragile bird, letting the chill seep into their fingers, into their bones. You take it too, your hands trembling slightly, feeling the shock of cold against your skin, sharp, pure, and fleeting. You let it rest there, just for a moment, as if you can slow the melting by sheer will alone. The trader with the weathered face, the one who told you about the whispers in the dunes, leans close and murmurs, "This is the taste of all the miles we've walked, the roads, the winds, the waiting. It's not just ice, you see. It's everything we carried, melted into one drop." And you understand, not just with your mind, but with something deeper, something quiet. The ice isn't just water. It's the story of the desert, the weight of the sun, the patience of the dunes, the hands that packed it tight, the camels that carried it step by slow step. It's the memory of sweat and laughter, of whispers at midnight, of parched lips and hopeful glances. The traders sip the last of the meltwater, eyes half closed, savoring the coolness as if it's the finest drink they'll ever know. And for a fleeting moment, it is. You taste it too, cold, sharp, a little earthy, with a hint of salt and dust and something else. Something like the air just before a storm, like the memory of rain in a place that has forgotten how to weep. The ice is gone now, just a damp patch in the straw, but the traders smile, nodding quietly, as if the weight of the loss is lighter than the weight of the journey. The story, they know, will last longer than the ice ever could. The stars bloom bright and clear, scattered like tiny lanterns across the night sky. The breeze sighs softly, lifting a few stray grains of seed that skitter across the ground with a soft, shooshing sound, like the desert itself, whispering, "Hush, hush, hush." The traders settle in, wrapping themselves in their blankets, their faces calm, their breaths slow. The camels shift once, twice, then settle, their eyes half-lidded, their bodies still as sculptures in the moonlight. You close your eyes too, your body heavy, the taste of cold water lingering on your tongue. The sand cradles you, warm beneath the surface, cool where the night breathes. The wind hums gently, wrapping around you like a soft shawl. And the desert sings its quiet, endless lullaby. The whisper of the dunes, the faint sigh of melting ice, the steady breath of the earth beneath you. You drift, the sounds fading, the stars softening, the edges of the world blurring into a gentle, endless hush. Just the wind now, soft against your cheek, and the quiet memory of a block of ice that crossed a desert and melted, drop by patient drop, into the sand. And you let go,